could be a chief, you could be a religious leader, you could be any form of leadership at all that you.
Criminal Offences Amendment Bill 2022 is read the third time and passed.
Hello there, it's Monday, July 31. Hello, welcome to Let's Talk Ghana, the last day of the month of July, the 7th month of the year 2023. Coming up on today's edition of the show, Finance Minister Ofori Atta expected in Parliament to present a mid-year budget statement in line with provisions of the Constitution. But while he's at that, the government of Ghana says it cannot pay back up to half of the 77 billion cedis printed forward by the central bank, which subjected to some analysis. And much later, National Teaching Council extends timelines for teachers to register for the teacher licensure exam. We asked the question if the concerns have been addressed in relation to the exam. This is Let's Talk Ghana. Stay with us. We'll return shortly. You're welcome back to Let's Talk Ghana. This is the show where we put Ghana first in all of our conversations. I am Eric Mawina Egbeta, your host. And on today's edition of the show, we're starting straight up with what appears to be a worrying development. It was reported on Friday by Reuters in relation to the government of Ghana saying that it cannot pay back half of some 77 billion cedis printed forward by the Bank of Ghana. As to exactly what this means, it means that between 2021 and 2022, the central bank, that's the Bank of Ghana, printed up to 77 billion cedis for government to use. And so no work was done, but the money printing machine was set up and it printed not 100 cedis, not 200 cedis, not 500 cedis, not 5 million cedis, but 77.7 billion cedis for the government of Ghana to carry out payment, expenditure, you name it. Amidst all of that, and with Ghana returning to the International Monetary Fund, it means that we have to restructure the country's debt. And now we're learning that government says, you know what, this is our own bank. It's the Bank of Ghana. So 77.7 divided by 2, you work the math. We're not going to pay half. And so forget about it. We don't have money to pay. The remainder, we're going to pay over 15 years term at much lower yields. And so it all looks like an investment scheme where government is going to be seeking to pay back the returns which it has received from the Bank of Ghana. Amidst all of that, the Bank of Ghana's own report now says that it made losses of up to $6 billion US. And so this is your money, my money, with individuals expected to be taking care of it, all crashing to a whole. Now, the interesting part of all of this and all of the monies printed for government is that it contributed to the 54% inflation which was recorded in 2022. And what did that inflation do? Well, the World Bank issued a report earlier this month which says that 850,000 people were pushed into extreme poverty because of the inflation. You see the domino effect? The government of Ghana not doing enough to raise revenue, going to the central bank, asking it to print money for it. The Bank of Ghana obliged, print 77 billion cedis between 2021 and 2022. What does it do? It means inflation goes up to 54.5%, 54% really, as at last year, resulted in 850,000 people pushed into poverty. And so we're just seeing how one decision by the government of Ghana, taking the domino effects, having rippling implications or rippling effect on ordinary lives. Amidst all of this, the finance minister is expected in Parliament today to present the mid-year budget statement. As to what all of this means, that's subjected to some analysis. Dr. David Yaumodi has joined us on the telephone lines with a bit more. Doc, many thanks for speaking to us. Right, so let's start off with the news, what's been reported by Reuters. It appears that it's all been confirmed somewhat. Does this come to you as a surprise?
Good evening, and let me greet Ghanaians and everybody. I'm not shocked because I have predicted all these things on your platforms and your sister stations. I told you that the government wanted to restructure our domestic components of the debts that we have, of which they were targeting 137 billion. We are in the middle of the year, and you could capture only 14 billion out of the 137 billion. So now you are left with 122 billion Ghana cedis. So you want the central bank to cancel the loans that you've taken from them through printing. So when they say they are going to write off a component of our debt, it's just cancellation of our debt that they're asking the central bank to do for us, which has implications for various dimensions in our economy.
Various implications, like you mentioned. First off, the challenge really was the printing of the $77 billion, which resulted in the 54% inflation that was seen last year and the resultant effect of increasing the policy rate and the likes. Now we're seeing these debts being cancelled by the government. What could be the possible implications for the Ghanaian economy, which is expected to be bouncing back from all of this?
See, when we say writing off a debt on one's balance sheet, so on the balance sheet of the government, the debt will escalate its liabilities. You know, those liabilities on the balance sheet of the government become an asset, or they become assets on the balance sheet of the central banker. Now, once you cancel off that debt, which is an asset on the central bank's balance sheet, now what will happen is that the reserve of the central bank will get reduced. A reduction in the reserve of the central bank is an issue of integrity. It means the bank will not get that momentum to operate, to control the exchange rate, to control even inflation. So what will happen is that prices of goods and services will continue to rise. Because if you are cancelling somebody's liability, it means you are making reserve or savings for the person. You cancel the liabilities of the government, you've expanded the government to purchasing power, because that money they will have used to service the debt, they are not going to use the money to to pursue consumption expenditure. And if you are pumping so much money to the economy to pursue consumption, and production side of the economy is not, being revamped, of course, the money will chase the fewer goods in the economy and prices will escalate. So inflation will rise. We will not be able to manage our reserve very well at the central bank, which will have implications for the exchange rate. So our CD will continue to depreciate. Now, there are others. See, this government has been warned long ago that there is a need for them to look at their, size. They should look at the size. They should also look at the kind of investment that they are making.
Right.
They should also look at the issue of corruption. Recently, we've heard of about somebody depositing more than $1 million in his house. Now we have about 86 ministers. Let's assume that a minister happened to deposit $1 million in his or her house. That is about $86 million.
Right.
Now, this money did not pass through the productive channels of the economy. It is passed through an illicit consumption channel. So the minister and his apparatus will go to the constituency, will enter the market and start, engaging the youth groupings, the movement groupings, the specialists, professional groupings, and they're giving them this money, and then they go back to the economy, pump the money to the economy, and there is no production, there is no supply. And when consumption exceeds production, inflation sets in. That is the reason why we are suffering. The black market economy in Ghana is very huge, and it is being perpetuated by the government. It is being perpetuated by the government just because they want to win the next election. So we have to understand that the kind of inflation we are seeing today, the suffering we are seeing, the unemployment we are seeing, they are as a result of our own actions and inactions. And if I were the president, I would have fired the governor of the central bank. I would have fired the minister of finance, because the two of them are grossly and heavily incompetent.
It doesn't look like any of that is going to happen, because the governor of the central bank, for instance, the minority have threatened to subpoena and have him dragged before Parliament because he's failing to even appear and submit audited accounts and the likes. It does appear there's a real challenge on our hands in terms of accountability from the side of the Bank of Ghana.
The governor is seen as an impotent stature that we have, placed there, and is doing virtually nothing. We live in a country where the central banker doesn't know where the dollars are circulating in the economy, where the pounds are circulating in the economy. Meanwhile, Ghana is an import-driven economy. When you go to the commercial banks, you go and then take a dollar out, there is a record at the bank. So are we making use of IS evolution that we are seeing today, these artificial intelligence tools that we're seeing today, the technology that oracles, among others, have developed? Are we leveraging those technologies to know where the monies are going? If one person can come to the bank and withdraw about $1 million and go and deposit it in her house,
right,
and the central banker doesn't know the whereabouts of that money, then the bank, the governor of that bank is highly and grossly incompetent. I am saying this with some amount of energy, because if I were the governor, I would have known that these ministers are holding this amount, unless of course we use the private jets of the country, go to the US, buy the dollars, bring the dollars, and give the dollars directly to the ministers to go and put in their houses. Otherwise, this illicit amount that we pump into the economy, they have implications for inflation.
Right.
As we speak now, inflation is over around 40 to 45%. The exchange rate has depreciated in an unimaginable manner. Unemployment rate double digits. GDP less than 4%. The income inequality gap. Look at the Gini coefficient, very abysmal. The head count. The amount of Ghanaians that live on $1.90 a day.
Right.
The number has increased by more than 500,000. Go and read the World Bank report. The central banker and the minister of our fiscal side of the equation, they have mismanaged events, and we need to look up to, the kind of people that we have placed there. This is a finance minister that said he was going to restructure our domestic component of about 37 billion. And in the year, we expected it to be about 34 billion reduction. Today, it's only 14 billion reduction. We are in the middle of the year, and then the remaining part of the year, we don't do anything. It is only the Christmas euphoria that will change events more. It means we are going to end the year with about just less than 20%,
right,
20 billion reduction.
Just quickly on it, with all of the things that you've been saying, quite clearly doom and gloom, but there's expectation that the finance minister will be in Parliament to give a statement on the mid-year budget. What is your expectation based off on what it is that we're hearing from Reuters and the Bank of Ghana's own reports, which amongst many other things stating that it lost about 45 billion cedis in terms of losses for the year 2022? What will be the expectation when the finance minister appears in Parliament?
I did not even expect the finance minister to be the one, Ofori Atta, Honorable Ofori Atta, to be the one reading the budget. Because the president told us that after the IMF deal, he will make a decision on the man. And we are saying he should be the one to read next year's budget for us. I think I don't want to comment now, but from what I know, the fundamentals are very bad. As we speak now, the exchange rate, the dollar to CD is still more than 10 Ghana cedis. Inflation more than 40%, and most of them, you see our revenue target for this year, we're looking at 143 billion. Our expenditure, 205 billion. You look at these differences, about 61 billion deficit. I expect that by now the finance minister will have put measures in place to mirror the 61 billion to somewhere less than 40 billion. That is my expectation.
Right.
But from where I sit, things are going to be very tough. Why are things going to be very tough? Because we have an occasion awaiting us, which is the Christmas season. And then also we have a major event, which is the election of the flag bearer for the leading party. I mean, the government in power.
Right.
All these are going to accumulate into other dynamics, and then it will, degenerate into things that Ghanaians should prepare for. We should prepare to appreciate the fact that the government is going to get a lot of space to borrow, because the central banker is now cancelling about 80 billion of its debts. The central banker is now going to face crisis in terms of managing the exchange rate,
right.
in terms of managing inflation,
right.
in terms of managing interest rate, among others.
Doc, I appreciate that you could speak to us.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
That's Dr. Yao Modi speaking to us this morning here on Let's Talk Ghana. The budget reading is much on later today. We'll bring you details of that and more. When we return, we'll just touch base briefly on a statement in relation to the teacher licensure exam. We'll let you know what exactly it says, and also a new law on witchcraft. You cannot label somebody a witch. There cannot be witch camps and the likes. We'll return shortly to get into these matters. This is Let's Talk Ghana. Stay with us. Right, you're welcome back to Let's Talk Ghana. Mentioned developments on the front of education in relation to the teacher licensure exam. Well, there's been an extension of the deadline for teachers to register, and this is important because up to 6,000 teachers failed the last exam, and this is an exam that grants teachers certification to be able to go into our basic schools and teach. And unfortunately, there's been lots of mass failures. And so with this extension to the 7th of August 2023, quite a number of questions come up. Whether or not these concerns have been addressed. Obviously, there's been worry and development with the parliamentary committee and the likes set up, but we're hoping that enough has been done this time around, that the teachers will be retaking the exam, can make it out successfully. But we're just ending with some good news. An additional amendment to the Criminal and Other Offences Act, this time having to do with witchcraft and whether or not you can label somebody as a witch. 3 years ago, Ikia Dente was stoned and literally lynched at Kafaba because she had been accused of being a witch. There's been judgment on that particular case. All 3 persons are given 10 years jail sentence. The sentence was reduced to manslaughter and not outright murder. But following all of that, Francis Xavier Sosu, who's Medina MP and a human rights lawyer, filed a private member's bail and sought to have the criminalization of accusing or labeling somebody as a witch. That took place. Let's take you to Parliament for how and when the bill was passed.
Third reading thereof shall not be taken until at least 24 hours have elapsed. The motion for the third reading of the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill 2022 may be moved today. I so move. Any seconder?
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion.
Procedural motion moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. We go to item 33. Yes, Speaker. Yes. I move that the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill 2022 be now read the third time. I so move. Seconder.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion.
Motion for the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill to be read the third time. Moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Honourable members.
An act to amend the Criminal Offences Act 1960, Act 29, to prohibit the practice by any person as a witch doctor or a witch finder, to proscribe the declaration, accusation, naming or labeling of another person as a witch, and for related matters.
Honourable members, Criminal Offences Amendment Bill 2022 is read the third time and passed.
So that was when the bill was passed. Afterwards, Mr. Xavier Sosu spoke to journalists in Parliament. Let's just take a listen to exactly what he had to say. And he believes that witch camps now are a thing of illegality.
Today we've had the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill 2022 relating to the activities of witchcraft passed into law. That should be some good news to you.
Absolutely. It's such a good news that I cannot hide my joy now. So the reason is that for all the 539 persons who are locked up in witch camps across the country, they are looking forward to us to take some decisive step to dealing with this situation. This problem has lived with us for over 100 years. We've been struggling as to how to deal with it. And to the extent that this 8th Parliament has found it needful to pass this bill into law, for me, it's definitely going to bring about a very serious mind shift. It's going to correct a lot of ills in our society. And I am confident that we are just building a better society for ourselves.
For those who may not know the exact details of this particular law, can you brief us on it?
Well, the law simply says that henceforth nobody can practice as a witch doctor or a witch finder. And it will be also unlawful to accuse another person of witchcraft. And if you are a community leader who supervises either the labeling of another person as a witch, or beating of the person, or lynching the person, as we have always been seeing, all of you will be in breach of this law. And also, the law does not relate only to traditional community leaders. The community leaders cover whether you are any form of leader. You could be a chief, you could be a religious leader, you could be any form of leadership at all that you hold. Once you supervise or you are seen as actually participating in labeling another person as a witch, especially for the purpose of being harmed, as we have seen most of the time, you are going to be infringing this law. By the passing of this law also, it means that all witch camps stand proscribed. In other words, they are all illegal. All camps that may be called witch camps no more is lawful in Ghana. And the law also requires that within a period, the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection will take steps to reintegrate people who are being held in various camps. The reintegration may take various forms, because when we visited the various camps, there were some of the camps that is essentially like a home for some of them. Yeah. So their reintegration may probably be that providing support for them where they are. Others may require that they may go back to their homes, but whichever way it takes, I believe that CSOs and the ministry will take up that fight and make sure that we can create a better society for these people who are just victims.
What is the punishment in this law?
The highest punishment is 5 years, or you pay, I think, up to 2,500 penalty units, or you could have both of them.
Francis Xavier Sosu there, ending today's edition of Let's Talk Ghana. Remember, we're keeping an eye out on the Speaker of Parliament, who's in, not the Speaker of Parliament, I beg your pardon, the Finance Minister, Ofori Atta, who's in Parliament to present the media budget statement. We will bring in you details of it and any other thing that transpires between now and Wednesday. I am Eric Mawina-Egbeta. This is Let's Talk Ghana. Many thanks for watching.
Studios 2 TV. The truth is here in your eyes.